So as we talk about things, I have the official first question for you. I
Good.
mean, we're
Lay
only
it on
30
me.
minutes in, and here's the first question. As you transitioned out of being a pro athlete and starting up your own business, how going from that structured to unstructured life, how was it? Like, how did you make that transition?
How do you make the transition?
Yeah, and how was it for
Well,
you?
you know, I've had a lot of time to reflect back on this, uh, and whether it be good or bad. Uh, I think the thing that I've realized in the recent years was that I really enjoyed playing football. Actually, it's really the only thing I've liked to do in this world. Just the mere fact that I got to train and got to strap up the game unis and run out there at 100 miles an hour and get basically one-on-one fist fight a dude for 3 hours in front of millions of people. I don't know if there's any way to replace that. And when you do that for as long as I did, like the volume gets kind of turned down on other stuff, and what happens is you get hurt, and you do the job. And even though I was able to do it for a decade, I still felt like I had a lot of good football left in me. It just the injuries and kind of the things that I played through ended up just compiling and getting to the point where I just couldn't do the game and play the game at the level at which I was accustomed to playing. And the one thing I didn't want to do, at least what I told myself, is I didn't want to be like not a starter. I didn't want to go and be a backup. And then it was funny when I was at the Patriots. I remember I was like, I got hurt and, didn't say anything, and then figured out like, hey, I'll just make it to the season and maybe I'm a backup guy and I can just kind of nurse through it. And that ended up not working. And I kind of like made this deal where I'm like, maybe I'll just be a quality veteran backup and I'll be good for the young guys and this. And no, that was never me. So, I always held myself to a very high standard, and I knew
Mm-hmm.
the level at which I was able to play, and anything less than that would have diminished my experience and, more importantly, kind of my image. And I think being able to step away from it and go do something else was the key for me. I was very lucky that, as I was, rehabbing on the couch, I got hit up by CrossFit, and I really never really retired. I just moved from one job to the next and continued to work. And it's not like I sat at home and said, oh, woe is me. What am I going to do with my life? I kind of 100 miles an hour kept running and working, doing what I did, and built Power Athlete. If I had probably taken some time to reflect and like understand, but also there were some other things at play. I think if I had not been kind of thrust with that opportunity, I probably would have chilled out for a little bit, and I was filling out applications to go back to law school. And that would have been probably something I would have done. My brother and my dad are criminal defense attorneys, and I'd kind of always promised my dad that I'd go to law school, and my brother I'd go into practice with them. So that would have been probably my other opportunity, probably go back to law school. And at the time I was only 32, so would have been a lawyer by the time I was 35. And, and that, next thing I know, I already would have been in practice for over a decade. So that was kind of another option. One of the issues I got into, and this is one of your questions a little bit later on. Um, I definitely think that the impacts and the collisions, and really just what you do playing football, can be extremely damaging to the brain. And I don't know, when I retired at the end, if I was as smart as I was 10 years before or 10 years after. So I was in Dr. Amen's study when they were talking about brain health and, more importantly, CT, and tried to do that. And the part of my brain that they analyzed that was damaged was up here on the left frontal lobe. And when I got through all their testing, they told me two things: good news and bad news. The bad news being obviously a brain damage here, and it's causing some cognitive issues. The one positive was I was actually the smartest dude that they had tested in the study, which I was like, the smartest ever, or like, no, smartest NFL player. Well, that's like being the best looking kid in an ugly class. So, but it really took me down this kind of fact finding, this mission to kind of heal my brain, and, more importantly, regain what I felt like I, set on the altar of pro football and set on fire, which I think is brain health and intelligence and some of those other things. So, being able to, start writing and learning and travel and teach and create everything I have for Power Athlete, I think really fueled this kind of like rebirth in a lot of ways for just intelligence and what you see today. So much
Hmm.
so that, those scans that I had done many years ago have been redone, and, all the effects of brain damage have since gone away. And, you know, my brain is sharper and more intelligent and better today. But I mean, that's been over a decade of work to try to make that happen. So I don't know if the position I went into where I started working with CrossFit and teaching was more like, uh, you know, I can do this and I can do it well, opposed from like, if I had to go back as me physically today, I probably would have never have gotten on the internet. I probably would have applied to law school and, gone and been an attorney, and probably only had social media to follow my kids. So there was a very real chance that I would have never had a podcast, and we wouldn't be having this conversation, and Power Athlete wouldn't have existed if I'd gone a different way. But it's, everything comes down to the small life choices, but it's been extremely rewarding, not only influencing people in a positive way and being able to do all that I've done in terms of, changing people's lives, and, talking about strength and health and performance and a lot of the things that we do with a Power Athlete. So it's been extremely influential for people. And, hundreds of kids have gotten scholarships from coaches we worked with. And, many of them gone on to win gold medals and, play in the NFL and do other things. So it's kind of an interesting balance. But I think, as you might know, or maybe you don't know, I was a classics major, a rhetoric major, and read a ton on not only like the Stoics and a lot of those, uh, you know, Marcus Aurelius, but really just Cicero, and from that time period, and like a lot of those kind of teachings have always kind of permeated within me. And the one thing that you see too often, or you don't see too often, is a wild thing feel sorry for themselves. Which is I think that Robert Frost poem. So I think all too often when guys retire from the NFL, there's a lot of woe is me. What am I going to do with my life? I'm not prepared in this. And I've just never really taken much stock in that. Like, if you're injured, you can fix yourself. If you need to learn something, you can learn it. And I think a lot of guys, because of the job, become a little bit lazy because people do shit for you all the time. And there's always there people. But I remember the day I retired, or the day that, I got cut by the Patriots and I came home. I remember my phone would blow up all day, text messages, people calling me. I remember my phone did not ring. And I remember feeling like this is the most empowering, best thing I had, because all of a sudden, like all those people that wanted a piece just fucking disappeared, and it allowed me to go on and live a new, different life. So it was, it was good in that regard. The one regret I have is it would have been fun for my wife and my kids to actually see me play. So like, even though I got married once I retired from the NFL and have since had kids, it would have been neat to like have a family while I was playing the NFL. So they could have got a chance to actually see me play and, kind of like understand the lifestyle a little bit more than just seeing it play on TV.
Yeah. that, well, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being here. I mean, like physically, mentally, metaphorically, all of those things. I think that, God has a plan for all of us to pick it up and move it and to guide us. And it looks like he's got you on a path, whether or like whatever spiritually you believe in. I'm not trying to preach anything to anyone, but
Oh,
I mean that. And
I believe it's a lot easier. So this is a kind of an interesting piece. I'm always amazed by people that are atheists, because I feel like it takes a lot of work to be an atheist. For you to sit there and be like, "There's nothing out there," I think that's a lot harder than saying like, "There's probably something out there," And
yep.
it's pretty interesting where kind of like where, and I find religion fascinating, because it's kind of like wherever you're born, you're kind of born into a certain message, right? Like, we're, obviously from the United States, we're born into this kind of Christian, white, Anglo-Saxon kind of deal. And, there's either, I grew up Catholic, you're probably from the Midwest. So you're, probably more
Catholic.
with, oh, you're Catholic as well. Yeah. So then there's like Christian Catholic, but yet, I have huge reservations about the Catholic Church. The
So do
fact
I.
that they systematically, hurt children, which to me is like kind of like
No
the
fly
weirdest
zone.
piece. Yeah, like like the people that like I said, I was a classics major. I mean, reading Dante's Inferno. The final level of hell is the people that deceive the weak and the innocent and hurt children. I mean, you're frozen in ice forever. So the fact that you have a the Holy Roman Empire, collapses and basically turns itself into a church, and then, basically create these priests where they don't have their own names and shuffle them around, and this systematic, preying upon children is, and almost condoning it, paying people off, and just, doing this, and that, still showing piety and standing up there, just always felt very disingenuous to me as a Catholic. So I have, since, uh, realized that organized religion is probably the worst thing that ever happened to God, And then you see down here in Texas, you have these mega churches with Joel Osteen flying around on a helicopter. And it's like, it just feels so weird to me that these guys are preaching the word of, like, the man who was the son of a carpenter, and, walked around, washed the feet of the poor, and hung out with, lepers and prostitutes is what they put it. But it just feels like the piety and, like, this like very humble nature of the person that they're preaching about, yet but not showing any of that, as he's standing up there in $5,000 suits getting on a helicopter. It just seems weird to me. So that's my only reservation. And then when you go to the Vatican and you see all that and the opulence, you're like, oh my God, this feels so weird. But yet, like, that's the world we live in. So it just feels very contradictory. So that's my issue with a lot of the religion stuff.
I'm with you 100%.